Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the audio recordings of the Poltergeist Fright series, where I read to you guys the stories that I have written and posted on Instagram over the last couple months. So today's story is going to be a bit more of a personal story, so I'm going to leave it at that. So let's get started. Behind the Old Man's Door. Grandpa was a good man, a kind man. He was strong, brave, and loved everyone with all his heart. At least, that's what I was told he used to be. However, since I was born, I only knew him as a monster. No, not a monster. You can get rid of monsters by shining a flashlight on them. There was no such escape from him. Whenever I was around him, I feared for my life. All the torture and abuse he put me through gave me scars that may never go away. Scars that made me lose my trust in humanity, my childhood, and nearly my life. Now here I am standing in front of the old man's door. I stood in front of a door that looked like it was the entrance of a king's quarters. The size of it was intimidating. Every inch of my body was shaking upon just staring at it. Behind that door is pure evil itself. I attempted to lift my arm to open it, but it couldn't budge. It was as if a powerful force was preventing me from seeing the other door's contents. Suddenly, the door swung open. A wrinkled hand came out and grabbed my arm. I pulled and pulled, but the hand's grip wouldn't weaken. I felt my body shrinking as I was getting closer to the other side. I was pulled onto a back porch, its rotten looking floor feeling like it could collapse if any more weight was added to it. It showed a view of the woods and pond that I frequently visited as a kid. I looked up at the owner of the hand. It was my grandfather. He was a towering figure, wearing that red flannel shirt he always wore and carrying a hunting rifle. He gestured to me to follow him, and we began walking towards the woods. I saw my reflection in the pond. I was without my glasses, and I was wearing overalls with Velcro Elmo shoes. I was 6 years old again. My grandpa was leading me deeper and deeper in the woods, aiming his rifle to prepare for approaching prey. As we got deeper, our surroundings got darker, and the ground was getting softer. I heard a gunshot in front of me and saw a raccoon falling one branch at a time down a tree. It was still twitching when it hit the ground, and he just crouched down and cut off its tail. After the deed was done, we continued moving until we reached the center of the pointing. And before I knew what was happening, I felt a strong push against my back as I fell face first. I attempted to stand back up, mud in my eyes from the fall, but as I did so, I felt myself sinking into the earth until I was knee deep. I called for Grandpa to help me, but I didn't hear an answer. The mud in my eyes prevented me from looking around to find him. I sat down on a firm piece of land and grabbed one of my legs and tried pulling it free. Inch by inch, my leg was budging, but it was searing in pain with each pull. Something that was in the mud was digging in my skin. I was able to get my leg out, and then the other. There was more cuts and mud on my legs than skin, and when I looked down at my feet, all that was covering them was damp, muddy socks. Crawling as far from the pit as possible, I wiped the mud out of my eyes and looked around. Grandpa was gone. I screamed for help, hoping someone would hear me. Nobody came. I was all alone. I curled myself into a ball and sobbed, realizing that I was just abandoned in the woods. All hope left my body. All I felt was the pain in my legs and tears on my face. Fear swept over me as I heard every noise of the woods coming into my ears at once. I grabbed myself tighter, trying to hide from the darkness, but I still saw it. Suddenly, I heard a gunshot out in the distance. I uncurled my body and sat up upon hearing the familiar sound. I heard another gunshot, and this time, I was able to determine the direction it was coming from. My fear was slowly turning into determination. I grabbed the tree nearest to me and I pulled myself up. My legs screaming in agony every second of the attempt, I slowly walked towards the sound, grabbing any tree or rock that would support my weight. Hours passed by before I saw the exit of the woods, and I saw the old man's door. By the time I got back, I was covered in so much mud that I looked like a different person. Grandpa came outside and walked towards me. I thought he was coming on to check on me and apologize for leaving me. Instead, he was screaming at me. He told me I should have died in those woods. He told me I didn't deserve to be loved because I was weak and worthless. He suddenly grabbed my arm and pulled me towards the door again. I attempted to free myself of his grip, but I was too tired and hurt. He opened the doors, and before I knew it, we were at the dock to the deep end of the pond. His hand was practically crushing my arm. I looked up at the man holding me hostage. He stares back at me with a smile on his face, but it wasn't a grandfatherly love smile. It was the smile of a predator about to kill their prey. He raised me by the arm until I was barely over his head, the fear making its way back into my body. I attempted to struggle out of his grasp, but the more I wiggled, the tighter his grip got. Before I had a chance to react, my grandfather threw me with great strength, and I landed right in the middle of the deep waters. I splashed and kicked, trying to keep myself from sinking into the watery grave, but all I was able to see as I was doing so was my grandfather walking away with pride. I kept trying with all my might to stay afloat, but between the gallons of water going into my mouth and the cuts on my legs screaming with each kick, I was quickly fading. I started sinking in the water. There was nothing to see in the murky depths. My eyes were getting as heavy as oxygen was getting drained from my lungs. I couldn't feel anything. It was all just numb. From that moment, I knew I was dying. Grandpa was the last face I saw, and I was going to die. No. I refuse to let that happen. I refuse to die. With a sudden burst of life in my body, I snapped out of my temporary death and struck with all my strength. My legs felt like they were going to split at the seams, but I kept stroking, hoping to find some way to drag myself up to the surface. I spotted the beam from the dock and made my way towards it. My strength was fading fast from the lack of air, so with all that remained, I hoisted my way up the beam. I was finally at the surface, breathing in as much air as humanly possible. As soon as I caught my breath, I clawed my way out of the pond. My clothes felt like they were glued to my skin. I was barely able to stand. My entire body was begging me to stop. I attempted to limp my way back to the door, but before I could take a step, everything around me was becoming overwhelming darkness. Wrinkled hands from every angle were holding me in place. Headlights started shining in my face. The rev of an engine is heard in the distance. Turns out Grandpa wasn't done. I attempted to run away, but I was too weak from the woods and the pond to make a significant effort against the hand's grip. All I could do was stare at the headlights getting closer and closer. There was nothing I could do. He always wanted me out of this world, and now he was going to get it. He only saw me as competition for everyone's affection. I closed my eyes, thinking of everyone I was never going to see again, hug again, or say I love you too again. I hope they know how much I appreciated their love. Something was burning inside me as I was thinking about the people who truly loved me. The warmth, their kindness, their protection, everything inside me was making me strong. I opened my eyes. The cuts and mud was gone. My glasses were back. I was no longer 6 years old. But in a way, that version of me was also adding to my strength. I stared down at the headlights and stood my ground as I freed myself from the grips of my grandfather's hands. My skin was glowing a golden glow as I raised my hand at the approaching adversary. I wasn't scared anymore. I was going to show him that he can't hurt me anymore. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and screamed with all my might, "Stop!" Once again, I opened my eyes. I was back where I started, but the door was now no bigger than me. A woman comes out wearing a white coat and looks at me. "You can say your goodbyes now." I walked in the door where there lay an old man barely alive. The bones of the arms were showing, the white hair thinning and patchy. I walk towards the man. He doesn't turn towards me, but I know he's aware I'm here. A heart monitor is weakly beeping in the background. His eyes were barely open, blankly staring into space. "I used to be so scared of you." His head barely moved towards me, like he was trying to listen to what I had to say. I stared back at him and continued. "I thought you were this powerful force that couldn't be stopped. You made me feel weak and pathetic and that I didn't deserve love. Now I realize how wrong I was. Unlike you, I didn't allow myself to dwell in the hatred that controlled you. Even when you put me in those situations, I kept love in my heart while you pushed all yours away, and you tried so hard to prove to me how weak I truly was, and all you did was make me stronger. I think you knew how strong I was, and that terrified you. I feel sorry for you. You had every opportunity to change, but now you're going to die all alone with all your hatred." I stared back at the shell that used to be my grandfather. I always feared that I would end up like him. There were moments where I felt hatred, jealousy, fear. Those moments, however, prove that I'm nothing like him because I never let those feelings control me like they did to him. I hear the heart monitor flatline as I reach for the door. I stare into the thinning crack of a man trying to be a monster. They say when one door closes, another opens. You just have to be willing to close the one behind you. Okay, I'm not usually gonna do a commentary after the stories, but this got me so emotional. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so first of all, I want to thank you guys for listening to this story, because the reason I wrote this story was to show people that um that just because there are very bad people, that doesn't mean you should be bad like them to get through in life. And I feel like excuse me, that I am very grateful for the life I have now. I mean, I'm not gonna, like, my life has been far from perfect over the years, and I wanna thank everyone that has been part of my life. And I love every one of you, and I enjoyed writing these stories, and I hope you enjoy listening to them as much. I mean, I know these audio recordings aren't perfect, but I'm very proud of these stories that I've written, especially this one, because it shows me how different I am from people that have tried to change me into something that is someone I don't want to become. And I'm glad I am not that person. I'm glad I have still kept my beliefs that I respect everyone unless they lose that respect. I try to be kind to everyone. And I'm so happy of how much I've grown over the years, and I have so many people to thank for that, and that's all. All right, so with that said, thank you guys so much for listening in. Tomorrow's story will be Angels in the Skies. So I hope you guys watch that one. And again, I want to thank you all so much for your support and for your love, and I will be forever grateful. And with that, guys, that is all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next recording.